This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Well, I appreciate her telling me that. Well, hey, Evan, it's nice to meet you. My name is Greg Cassad. I serve as a senior compliance advisor for WildAid Marine. In that role, one of the things I do is I oversee some of our technical programs and process, initiatives that are ongoing. And in this case, Bob and Karima have been spearheading the efforts to build an app that's called OFISH. That app is designed to support field level officers when they do their inspections. So that's kind of this like the really quick and dirty background wise. With WildAid supporting projects, a couple of projects in Africa, some projects in the Caribbean, and then also in South America. Background as U.S. Coast Guard, maritime law enforcement's my background. And so with that, I will turn it over to Karima, and then we'll go to Bob, and then Bob can do the demo.
Okay, that sounds great. So I've been with WildAid for about 4 years, and my background is from everything from underwater photography and video to aerospace engineering and yacht restoration. So I am the program manager for Gabon. I work there with Greg, and also working with OFISH in Namibia is where we did a trial run of the beta, and I'm the technical advisor, so I've produced a tool that lists a lot of the technical equipment for the vessels and so forth, the different types of software and VHF radios and that sort of things to create, for instance, surveillance kits for the rangers in the field. So that is my area of expertise. And on that note, I pass it on to Bob.
All right, nice to meet you, Evan. So my name's Bob. I work with WildAid, been working with them since the beginning of 2019, just helping with capacity building. My background is law enforcement. So I was formerly in both California and Hawaii in their game warden program, was the chief in Hawaii and an assistant chief in California. So I'm just gonna run through the app. That's the easiest way to do it. So a little background on the app itself. The app was made for fisheries boarding officers. So when an officer boards a boat, normally they try to do an inspection. The inspection covers, some very basic items on the boat, like what's on the boat in terms of gear and fish and who the captain is, maybe if there's any licenses available, whatever. So normally, we used to do that and we'd fill out like a 3x5 card, right? And that card would go into a pile somewhere. No one would ever look at it. Or it would be wet and you couldn't read it, you're on a boat. So, or you write on the back of your hand. So when I was in California, we tried to kind of automate the process a little bit and also be able to share the data with allied agencies. So for instance, the Coast Guard, we didn't usually talk to them. We didn't share the data from these boardings. So we needed a way to kind of share certain elements of the data, maybe not all the data, because obviously some of it's private in terms of names or birthdays or whatever, that sort of thing. So we kind of came up with a little app. So when I joined WildAid, one of the first trips I did was down to the Galapagos Islands. And the same thing occurs all over the world is, these records aren't really digitized. They're not able to be shared. So we had some generous help from a software developer in California to kind of revamp some of the things that we had initially put into the first version of the app, make it a little bit better. And so we ended up with OFISH. So I'm going to just share my screen and it's going to be the actual phone screen. I have an iPhone. So it's just I'll show you the app. And if you have any questions or anything, stop me, try to interrupt me, whatever you want. So, okay, let's see if this works. I'm going to try and share my screen here. Can you see my, whoop?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing your the second page on your iPhone.
Okay, great. Okay, so you see down in the second to the last row, the little OFISH app, right? So basically an icon And what you can download it through the test flight or whatever, right? So we'll open that up and you can log in. I have mine set to face recognition. You can use every time it's going to have a unique identifier, right? So we'll set up what we do to set up an account, then email and a password. So you can see it automatically locates you. I'm actually in Las Vegas, so that's good. It's showing exactly where I am. So this automatically gives you your position, right? And wherever you are, and it operates independent of whether or not you have a cell signal as well, right? So it's based on your phone's capability. If your phone isn't capable, then it's not going to download it without a cellular signal. So this is the first screen they come up to. We can, this is when you first approach a boat. You know, there's you have your unique login up here as your little icon. So you can board a vessel. Let's just say we're offshore and we want to board a vessel. So we'll click the board a vessel. It'll show you the last 5 vessels boarded. So if it's one of these 5, let's say it's the Vagabond, we can go ahead and click into the Vagabond and we can see the results of the previous boarding. So this is really good to give you kind of a heads up on who might be on the boat, if you know them, if there was any sorts of problems on the boat. This little icon right here, and we'll get to it a little bit later, but for right now, green is something that, okay, well, there was no problems on the boat. You can see up here immediately, it was boarded once. There was no warnings and no citations, and it was boarded on February 12th. Now you can open this up to get further details, where it was boarded, you know, all the other things that we're going to record on the boarding. But let's say that we want to board this particular vessel. So we'll just go ahead and click it. So we have the basic information. Again, the date and time, the location. You can move it around if you want to. And then we go to the vessel information. Now here's a really good time saver. If the boat has been boarded before, in this case it has, we can pre-fill all the information. So we just pre-fill and all the information from the last time, which hopefully this information doesn't change, right? Name of the boat, permit numbers, whatever, flag. So then we can record the date of the last delivery. You know, we can, there's a date picker in here. If it has a electronic monitoring system, so VMS, AIS, cameras, you can put all that information in there and record it. So if we go to the crew, you can do the same thing. And it's just kind of giving you a little reminder of like, are you skipping stuff? Yeah. And then along with the crew, we can pre-fill crew. You can add or subtract crew members. You can add pictures. You can add notes. And again, I'm going through this pretty quick. So if you have any questions, let me know. You can go to activity. So in here, we've put some drop-down menus in there. So also to decrease transcription error, right? So these are your basic activities that you're going to find: offloading, transiting, whatever. So we'll just say it's offloading. You can pick a fishery. So again, drop-down menu, but these drop-down menus can also be customized to your jurisdiction. So if you have a particular fishery that you're interested in, you can preload those. Same thing with the gear. You can do that. So again, we tried to put drop-down menus in as much as possible to decrease the transcription error. You can go to catch. Again, species can be a customized drop-down menu for your jurisdiction. Weights. If you do weight and count, again, you can do all those things. Violations. Again, violation would be a drop-down menu based on your jurisdiction. So the result of the violation, you can either do, say, a verbal warning or a written warning, is common in a lot of jurisdictions, or you can do a citation. The citation, let's just click that. It was issued to, you know, one of the crew members, the captain. Again, drop-down menu to decrease the time that you're doing. You can do the seizure information, any description, photos. Let's keep editing. And then again, we go back to the risk. So if there was no violations and everything was fine on the boat, the risk might be green. If there was some safety violation or something that needs to be notated, maybe amber. If there was a serious violation or a ticket or whatever, we could say red, so that the next officer that goes on the boat has an immediate feedback of what the potential risk is before they board the boat, which is really important. And again, if there's something, catch-all, notes, pictures, whatever you wanted to do, right? So we can either submit the boarding, save it for later to finish it. If we have to board another boat, keep editing, or cancel boarding. In this case, we're just going to cancel the boarding. So say, okay, and it'll take us back to our home screen. So that's generally, if you're working the same fleet and you have, you board the boats every week or every month because you're inspecting for fisheries, this will be a good time saver. Also identify boats that might move jurisdictions, right? So if I board a boat in one area and it moves to another part of the coast where other personnel are inspecting boats, they'll have an immediate way to understand what's been happening on that boat previously. If there was a warning given, they encounter the same violation on that boat again, right? Then they can take more appropriate enforcement action. So for instance, a minor violation that was detected, say 2 weeks ago, and they were given a warning, it's boarded again in 2 weeks later, that same violation is encountered. Now maybe they can receive a citation or some other action because they've already been warned, right? Normally the officers wouldn't know that. So this guy could work along the coast and get warnings for the same minor violation up and down the coast. So that's the quick and dirty. Again, if you can board a vessel from scratch, so if there's no record, these are the last 5 boardings, but you can search for any boat in the search field. Cool. And then you can also just board a new boat. And so then you would come up with all the information and fill it in as you went. So again, it's pretty simple. Most of the folks that we've talked to have, the workflow is something that we developed, so it mirrors what an officer does when they get on the boat. And so the feedback we've got, it's pretty intuitive. It's not, it doesn't take a lot of training to try and work the app or anything like that. So it's a fairly intuitive application. So with that, do you have any questions? I mean, that's pretty quick and dirty thing.
Just Evan, before you ask questions, Bob, could you just talk briefly about the dashboard that's available on the other side of it?
So this is the mobile app. And so this is obviously for the officers in the field to give them real-time sharing ability of the information, all that sort of stuff. We also, the companion to this is a desktop application that's available to the folks in the office or a manager or the officers when they're on shore to go back and summarize the data and produce reports of, say, an individual officer's activity or activity by boat or a compilation of catch that was monitored at sea. So all the fields can be, manipulated and displayed on the desktop application from the data that's inputted into the app.
Very cool. That was actually going to be my question: is where this gets spit out to?
So some of the records, if you're offline, the records would be stored locally on the phone. But once you're, connected again to the network, all the data is stored in the cloud. So there's a nominal cost, for cloud storage associated with the app, but it's not very much. I mean, it's like pennies. So, but that's one of the things, the main focus of the app was to make sure that the officers in the field have a tool that works for them. But the side benefit to that is, if you're a supervisor back at home or a manager, you can compile all the data from the officers into one nice package to see maybe what your compliance rate was, how many boats were boarded this month, who boarded what boat, what time, where, all those sorts of things. And obviously we spent a lot of time on security issues as well. So every record that's produced in the app, if it is modified at a later date, there's a version control. So,
Yeah.
you know, the data can't be manipulated. The data can't be shared without permission. And as an administrator for the app, you can set those permissions to silo the data so you can share portions of it with another agency or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, let me just say, I don't have many questions because this is insanely intuitive. So it's remarkably straightforward, and I'm actually really impressed by how simple it is. Kareem, I'm really glad you did record this conversation because I think we had slightly misunderstood what the kind of point of this app was. We had, the fisheries I had been talking about were much more kind of local artisanal fisheries, beach-based data collection. And that's obviously a slightly different type of survey from this, but we obviously have the same type of dynamics and need some type of solution. So I definitely think Pablo will be very interested in kind of hearing about it and following up more specifically. My one question would be in regards to language. I know it's a small detail. I noticed it wasn't English. Are there other languages available?
Yeah, so the app, it's really kind of cool. So within the app, a lot of the functionality is based on the phone language, right? So if your phone language is different, then the app will adapt to that. So there might be some localized translation issues that we can work through, that you can customize the app with the programmers. But most of it is, we do have it in Spanish or whatever language your phone is in, the app should adapt to that for the most part. There are some minor tweaks that need to happen in some of the app. And let me just talk about like if it's even with a shore-based operation. So like if your inspector, and it's really, Karima set it up and we set it up for the Namibian observers, right? And if you think about it, an observer or a census taker generally records the same sorts of information as maybe an inspector does, right? So we're talking about an authorization to fish. If there's a licensing regime in your area, this is what the app is meant to capture, right? Whether it's a vessel registration or a fishing registration or whatever. So it captures that. It also captures gear type, right? So if you're talking a beach seine or hook and line or long line gear or whatever, it's meant to capture that. And then it's also meant to capture catch, right? In terms of species and amount. So really those are the three things that, whether you're inspecting people on shore or at sea or in any other context, those are the things that as a management agency, you're most likely to want to collect, right? So I talk about all the time, paperwork, catch, and gear. Those are the three main ones as a fish and game agency, right? So it is adaptable to that. But the real thing is, the real value of this is for a fisheries boarding officer at sea. But we did make it so that we can do dockside boardings as well, which would translate into what you described as a shore-based contact.
Yeah. So I should definitely clarify. I can see how it could be used onshore just as easily as on a boat. We do try to get and I maybe you're gonna say that there's a solution for this in the app, which would be awesome. We're currently using kind of a custom solution using Survey 123, and we are trying to collect some additional socioeconomic data and some additional detail on individual species, on individuals within the catch, so that we're able to get morphometric details and that type of stuff. That's obviously because we kind of need to be really identifying specific zones where recruitment might be going on, etc. And that's because we relative to some of the scales I think you're talking about, we are operating on a relatively small scale. It's, just over 1,000 square kilometers. So, it's all coastal, and easily operable. But like I said, there are, as you probably know from previous interactions with Pablo, there are a number of offshore vessels that are regularly fishing and occasionally engaged in illegal activities. So this type of tool does seem like it would immensely streamline some of the workflows that we have, especially as we hope to kind of expand that capacity in the future. So long story short, this is something that seems awesome. I'm incredibly impressed as someone who constantly does this type of survey work. It is incredibly intuitive. It seems incredibly simple. And as I think you guys would agree, those are the key points. So yeah, I mean, I wish I had more questions, but like I said, it was so incredibly straightforward that it's kind of a no-brainer that it's something worth exploring in the future. So
Yeah.
Evan, Bob didn't mention this, but the best piece of it, free.
Yeah, exactly.
Free, right? I mean, it's open source, minus the cloud costs that Bob talked about, and then certainly, depending on how things played out, if there's a lot of programming needs or something like that, we may have to figure something out. But at this point, I think if that process of working with you to develop those fields, I think WildAid's at the point now where we're trying to get this thing rolled out, and so we would be happy to partner with you to do that. And try to minimize the cost that would be put upon African parks. So you guys we would work with you on that piece of it to get it set up exactly as you need it.
Very cool. I mean, I would, if I didn't prepare this now, I probably should have. But perhaps we can schedule another meeting sometime. I could show you guys what we're using. Like I said, I do think it starts to get into a level of detail that might kind of require a little bit of a clunkier solution like we have compared to what you guys are operating with. But perhaps I'm missing something, and you guys will quickly see that we are able to get some of the kind of more in-depth biological data that we're looking to collect. And then, it would be cool at least to hear your thoughts. I
know you're probably looking at length frequencies, like you said, and things like that to do survey work. And so again, it's not, wasn't designed to do that sort of thing. I certainly, the observers have the same need, right? They may be doing length frequencies on a particular species. They may, they're doing several samples throughout the day on the same vessel. So you're right. It's not the exact solution. So our thought is that, again, it's designed for inspections, usually in a regulatory context and not research need. But what I can say is that, if it's something you want to play with, we have no problem setting up a little siloed account for you so that we have a test account, and, you can coordinate with Karima to get, email and password, download the app. If you like it, if you think it'll work, certainly we can have further conversations about, how to maybe tweak it a little bit, or, if it doesn't meet the needs that you guys are after, then, that's fine too, right?
One thing that I would add is that we certainly are looking at making sure that OFISH is it can be integrated into other systems. So if there's a API that is specific to, like, for instance, if you want to integrate with Smart or a different type of app, there might be those possibilities down the road to include a survey in conjunction with it. So that's certainly not out of the question.
Cool. We're currently using CyberTracker and ArcGIS. Not too much Smart here currently, but
Yeah, so Cyber Tracker, I believe, integrates with Smart. It's one of their, or with Earth Ranger for sure, to try and display different items. And you as a park,
Sorry. I totally misspoke. That doesn't make sense. We're using Earth Ranger and ArcGIS.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as the situational awareness platforms, those are what we're using. Sorry.
Yeah, so we're working and certainly integrating OFISH into Earth Ranger, because Earth Ranger is kind of like collecting all the data, right, to display for a jurisdiction. Integrating the OFISH data into Earth Ranger is something that we've been working on with Jess and having those conversations. So
Cool.
it's a possibility. Again, Earth Ranger is kind of collecting all the data, right? Whether it's from Cyber Tracker or any other application, any other sensor data it can display for you. But yeah, just another tool. Again, we're just trying to roll it out. We made it for fisheries boarding officers, right? So that's kind of the niche that it works best for. However, little tweak here and there, it certainly could meet your needs. And rather than spend a whole lot of money when certain jurisdictions don't have that money, if you can get something for free and tweak it a little bit and it works good, it's, that's what we're after. That's what we're doing. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'll absolutely chat with Pablo immediately following this. And I definitely think we'd love to start with it and at least trialing it out in some context. So yeah, thank you guys.
That sounds good. Evan, the only thing I would say is that if you do want to go to that next step, then some of the things that we would require, and I can certainly specify that in an email, is like the catch list, the list of email addresses and names of the rangers that you would like to trial it primarily, even if it's 4 or 5 accounts or 20. Whatever works for you, but those would be like the violations is the other, and to get those things as an Excel spreadsheet would be helpful so that we can just load that information in for your trial site.
Yeah, and we also have that test group, Karima. So if maybe Evan and Pablo just want to play with that initially to see, a little bit more detail about how the app works, then that might be a way to start to before we ask them to compile a bunch of stuff.
Right. That sounds good. Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys very much for your time. This is very informative.
Great. It was nice to meet you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, tell Pablo we said hi.
Yep.
I will.
I know we need to catch up with him on some other stuff too. And I don't know, are you going to be on the marine radar discussion as well, Evan?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
All right. Well, sorry, Bob and I are kind of heading out on the road here for the next month-ish. So, but we'll get back in touch with you guys and we can chat marine radars as well.
Very cool. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All righty. Thanks, Evan.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
So, thanks, guys. Karima, do you mind stopping the recording?
Sure.